This episode, nobody beats the house.
GearWebsites.com is your source for firearms-based playing cards and books. We also have mugs, shirts, and posters with designs that we've made live. Of course, we have patches. Every Friday is Free Patch Friday. We appreciate your support. Thank you for shopping at GearWebsites.com.
At Radio Free America, and this is Uncle Sam with music and the truth until dawn. Right now, I got a few words for some of our brothers and sisters in the occupied zone. The chair is against the wall. The chair is against the wall. John has a long mustache. John has a long mustache. It's 12 o'clock, Americans, another day closer to victory. And for all of you out there on or behind the lines, this is your song.
And welcome everybody to our daily gun show. Come to you live every weeknight at midnight Eastern or sometime, and we talk about guns for about an hour or so. So thanks everybody for joining us. First off, let me apologize to the people that were here on time last night when we normally run the show at midnight Eastern. In real life stuff eventually or occasionally interferes with the show. I think we're 1,400 something episodes in. Doesn't happen too often, but again, I apologize for the people that got stood up waiting in line and then waiting for the show to go live for it to only not go live until I think it's like 1 in the morning, 2 in the morning, 1:35 in the morning. So this is a truly overnight show tonight. So if anybody does show up for this live portion, good evening. You're a true overnighter. DJs out there, welcome. So DJ was the first one to show up last night as well, so thanks double for that. G23 got shafted last night, so did Jacob and Patriot in the Dark and Wesley. Thanks everybody for showing up if you're listening to this in the future. All right, so today it's Thursday. Well, this is the Thursday show, and on each day of the week, we're trying to do some stuff with this show. We're trying to accomplish some things. So each day of the week, we have a topic, a goal to reach, or at least a direction to go for different goals for the show. Mondays, we inspire, encourage, and workshop Second Amendment activist skills and motivation. So our goal is to inspire Second Amendment activists. What's wrong with my phone? I can't tell if my phone's the problem or if my cords are the problem. It's probably the phone. I hate that thing. I gotta get a new phone. Anyway, my phone's not charging over here. I'm being distracted. I totally lost where I'm at. So it's like I say, it's a crazy night, and nothing I can do with this to get it to shut up. So it's gonna keep bugging me. I don't know why it's doing that. I need to get my phone charged as we're talking here. Important things to need and. Thank you. I don't know if you can hear the little noisy thing telling me that it's not charging. I don't know why my thing is so loose all of a sudden. I'm going to take a second here and do some phone maintenance. Putting something into my slot here and seeing if that potato chip or something in there. What's going on? All right, I think I was saying on Mondays we motivate, or we attempt to motivate Second Amendment activists. On Tuesdays, it's our Second Amendment. It's a great show, isn't it? Trying to get my cord so that it at least is in the right direction to stay charging while we're chatting here. Hopefully when I'm done, I'll have my phone that's working again. All right, so Wednesdays, we try to have some fun, and we look at guns in our culture and our society and in our movies and things like that. So then we also do the tactical quiz. Today's Thursday. This would have been Thursday. We either do training or travel. And then on Fridays, we take a look at the industry and a look back at the week to see what others have been paying attention to and offer kind of a sit rep of the week, a situation report of the week. So we're talking about travel today, and I've got my screen share up here, and I still got DJ's thing on here. Trying to get my phone to quit distracting me. We do have a poll going, and I see there are some people joining us, so thanks again for people that are joining us in the middle of the night. RTT says, I said not going on the gun show poll, but I've never heard of it either. Oh, okay. Well, hopefully you'll be learn something new tonight then. Roy's saying he's an insomniac, pretty much always up this late. Right on. Wesley's here. Good evening. Also still not going to Tulsa. Well, let's see if we can talk you into going to Tulsa. Roy's not going, never been to a gun show. Oh, interesting. All right, so let's take a look. We do have a poll going, and for the people that showed up earlier, I'm imagining, because I don't think there's this many people right here right now, we have, are you going to the Wanenmacher gun show? And the 4 responses would be, yes, I love the show and have been many times. Yes, I'm going for my first time. Or no, I'm not, but I want to go one day. And then the last one, of course, for Biden and all those people. So right now, not going, but want to one day is at 75% of the results. And yes, love the show, been many times is 23. All right, so we'll keep that poll going. And anybody who joins us tonight while we're live or morning, I guess it's morning for the East Coast, right? If it's 2, it's like 5 in the morning. So a bunch of regular morning people are getting up right now. And you're getting to see what the Daily Gun Show is all about live. So if I am, I should introduce myself to people that might be listening to this show in the morning. We go live at midnight Eastern. And like I just said, we try to accomplish some things with this show. We're 1,400 episodes in. And my goal is to share our culture with each other and with those people that hate us and want to marginalize what we own and why we own it without knowledge or awareness of why. So to help champion or help defend and champion gun ownership and the reasons why one might own a gun, the various facets of why one might own one. We've been sharing our gun community, firearms culture, and the industry and the individuals. We've been attempting to encourage and facilitate content creators to be part of this whole thing in order to do the same so that people can see what gun owning is all about. Of course, it's marginalized to be some sort of a vice or some kind of a worship of evil or violence. It's going to be further from the truth. It's like saying people who like this orange van here are in favor of the negative things that a vehicle can do. It's ridiculous. And it's marginalization. It's an actual attempt to push the Overton window, if you want to look that up someday. But it's an attempt to change the culture by downsizing or dismissing the reasons for ownership of firearms, or in this case, property. And the way you fight that is to yell and scream and pout, or to put effort into awareness, effort into education, and effort into illuminating people who might not have any interest or reason to look into what we do. And we don't have to parade around necessarily, but we can put our side of the story there for people to find, and that's what we've been attempting to do. All right, so that's what the Daily Gun Show is all about. That's what our Gun Show Loophole tour has been all about. That's what our websites are all about, and we're going to be talking about all 3 of those things tonight. So each night we go live. Like I say, we do this stuff in order to accomplish some things, and hopefully this is an introduction, and you can tell it's not scripted, and that's another way of introducing ourselves. We do not try to put on airs here. We're not trying to do anything fancy, and we're really using the internet the way one might use a paintbrush or a Whitland knife. You know, we're trying to create something, and it's not necessarily got to be a final product all the time. Our goal is to show people that they can also use these tools and participate. All right, so that's our introduction to the show for people that might be listening in the morning. Typically, we'll kind of keep a topic and eventually hover around that topic for the night. All right, so going around to Roy's waving, and then Fatty with a firearm. Long time no see. I've been at the Wanenmacher I'll be at the Wanenmacher on Saturday. I have to work tonight, so getting flipped back to night shift right now. Right on. Roy is saying, I don't think I've ever heard anyone say anything positive about modern gun shows. People mostly complain about high prices. Yeah, that's like people that complain about the airport or they complain about traffic. Those people are going to complain. They don't think about what an airport offers, what an airport, the results of having airports are, and the infrastructure that the highways are. So there's lots of people that don't appreciate gun shows, and I don't try to win people over. I just try to let people know who do appreciate gun shows, what's going on with the gun show scene. So I hear you, and hopefully that's one of the things that we're offering. Again, I don't need to justify gun shows. They're just one of the most interesting aspects of gun culture, and they're often marginalized, just like gun ownership. Think about a couple of guns that get marginalized, right? There's lots of pieces of our own, I keep saying culture, but our own area, the world here. And there's a lot of tourists. There's a lot of people that own a gun or two, and they're like, oh yeah, I'm a gun owner. Yeah, you're a gun owner. Great. That's awesome. It's like saying that somebody owns a car as a car owner or a car enthusiast. No, you're not. You own a car, but do you know how to fix anything on it? Do you know anything about the history of that car? Do you know any reasons why that model is any different than the other model other than the cost of it and the color or whatever, the shape of it? Most people are tourists. Most people are owners. They don't like to hear it because they feel like once they bought the thing that they're somehow in the culture and they're somehow, experts, and that's fine. They are, right? They are. But at the same time, they don't appreciate nothing until they've actually had a chance to experience it or have an open enough mind to let other people do their thing without it somehow challenging their ego or their issues. But, so gun shows are pretty awesome, and we've been to plenty of them. Wanenmacher is the largest one. So we'll talk about the history of that one. Let's see. DJ saying modern gun shows are nice. I don't know. They're definitely unique. They're not what they used to be. But anybody who doesn't like the idea of the gun industry getting together so that you can meet your fellow gun enthusiasts, that's like saying, I want to worship, but I don't want to go to congregation, or I want to, participate in thrifting and stuff, but I don't want to go to thrift stores or the swap meet. Like, okay, good luck with that. You got eBay. I guess you can have a facet of it. That's like saying, I want to be in the gun culture, but I never want to meet a gun person. Okay, you can do that. It's totally possible in 2022. If everybody did that, we'd have a different culture is all. Gun shows are the places where FFLs are allowed to do business. That is not their brick and mortar. And because they're a highly regulated, highly enforced, and that enforcement can fluctuate. So right now they're in a prohibitively enforced situation with their licensing and their permitting. With the obviously we all know the bureaucracy that enforces and regulates that. And the only place that they can do business legally besides their brick and mortar location is a gun show. There's a reason there's a gun show loophole. There's a reason they go after gun shows and they pick gun shows out to complain about private sales. Otherwise, they'd say private sales. Private sales is a way for the antis to not say private issues, is a way for the antis to skirt the idea that they're taking away your rights, that they're taking away our freedom, right? They're taking away something from the next generation. They can say gun show loophole because it's got a connotation. Do you think that the current attitude about gun shows is based on people attending gun shows? Is it based on people attending gun shows and telling their friends so they have them and their friends have a one person understanding of gun shows? Or is it because people are like, oh, I didn't like what the gun show wasn't what I expected, and they complain about it casually? Or how much of it is the antis putting a negative connotation on gun shows in movies and media and in policy, public policy, and in laws, and in attacks, vicious attacks, where politicians can go after gun shows as if there's some kind of a, negative thing. So, how much of the gun owner's opinion of gun shows is influenced by Bloomberg? So, I don't know. I want to go to a gun show. Let's say I hated gun shows, or I didn't know anything about gun shows, I guess, and I hated them because I've never been to one before. I might want to go to one just to make sure I hated them or whatever. And then since a gun show is sort of like a fingerprint or a gun shop or a lever action rifle or a revolver, it's just a description of a thing that has many variations, potentially ultimately many variations. You'd have to attend a couple of shows in order to get an idea of what that region's gun shows are like, or what that promoter's gun shows are like, or what that season's gun shows are like. Gun shows are different in the summer. They're different in hunting season. They're different at Christmas. They're different when it's super hot out. Gun shows are just swap meets where gun shops are able to do business. So they attract people with that kind of stuff. Promoters are the ones that bring the gun shows together. They're the DJs. Is that the right word? They're the, I guess they're just promoters in music too, but they're the people that have the vision and they think, hey, if we create a place, will they come? Will the vendors come and will the attendees show up? So the promoters will find a location, usually like a fairgrounds or a big building, an exhibition hall or a convention center or something. They'll find a time it isn't being used and then rent it for the weekend, let's say. That means they'll get it. Then they have to arrange for chairs and tables. And then they have to arrange for insurance and marketing and advertising and that kind of thing. Then they'll have, vendors for food and whatnot. Then they'll figure out their structure and their way they want to kind of figure it out. And then they'll sell the tables. So they'll rent a bunch of tables and they'll figure out their layout and how they're going to set it all up. And then they'll start selling those tables. And then the tables will get sold to manufacturers. They'll get sold to gun shops. They'll get sold to people who sell things out of their house, maybe on Etsy or eBay or something. They'll get sold to people who just want to sell some stuff like they would in a garage sale or in a classified ad on the newspaper or like on eBay or something. Sometimes people get together. There's lots of times over the years I've encountered, let's say hunting buddies or people from school or people that work together, whatever the reason is that ties 3 or 4 guys or people together. They'll show up, they'll rent a table together, and that gives them a lot of advantages. Now you got 4 or 5 people to watch the table. If everyone sits there, great. If nobody sits, well, nobody's ever going to not sit there. So there's always somebody to sit there. So 4 people could get sick of talking to each other, go out in different directions, do whatever they're going to do, have some adventures, come back and be ready to chat again, right? It's just a cool friendship bonding experience like that. I've seen countless iterations of that. You got old guys that'll purchase a table together and they'll buy and sell stuff that they know about, coins or trigger packs or sights. I mean, there's crazy stuff that people get interested in. Let's talk about guns for a second, just before we keep going about gun shows. A gun is an assembly of parts that does a job, right? And everybody's got their own opinion on what it's going to look like or feel like. So the materials that it's used, the design and everything, there's millions of them. I mean, literally at this point, you got different holes in it, so you can put different bullets in it, right? That's a whole nother thing. But just that gun itself, it's got to be made up of somebody's making that sight. Somebody's doing all that engineering. Those are CAD people. Somebody's running those computers. Somebody puts those people in a building together. Somebody markets that and sells that to engineers who then hire people to run lathes and equipment who know what they're doing and have some sort of a passion for the product, and then buy materials and poop it out into the shape of whatever that goes to the final manufacturer, who scrapes off out of the final dimensions, writes their name on it, and markets it as a final product with their design and all that to it. So all of these elements of a firearm, all the materials that go into it, all the distribution and the relationships there, and then all the engineering and all the machinery that gets into it, and then all the final products and all the finishing and all the graving and all the lasering, all of that stuff is done by people. out there going to Walmart and going to a Little League game and listening to concerts and all that stuff. So all of those people could go to a gun show with insight and knowledge and awareness of elements. You know what I'm saying? That's just the industry going to the gun show. So there's lots of people that might show up at a gun show and consider the conversations that might be had when you're sitting there with your Ruger, blah, 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 at the table. And somebody walks up and says, oh, I was the one that engineered the angle of the rear sight on that. And here's a half an hour story about that. I mean, is that overall going to change the world? I don't know, maybe, but probably not. But it's super fascinating for people that own the Ruger, blah, 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 or that might own that. And you might want to talk to those people in the future. Gun shows are super neat. They're just places for people to get together in a casual environment to talk about something that of common interest. And like I say, the depth of that can be massive. So it turns out in the middle of the night, I'll just blab since nobody's here to stop me from blabbing. Let's see. So then Fatty say, my local gun shows are organized by two different people. One throw a pretty decent show. The other sucks. So it can really depend on who organizes the show that can determine the quality of the show. Oh, for sure. And that's more like your overall, like who's setting the table and where they're setting it up and when they're setting it up. All of that can matter. You can have a gun show in a hot place that's when it's cold, or a cold place when it's hot, or in a cold place when it's cold and a hot place when it's hot. And people are going to want to attend those in various ways, right? You can encourage and incentivize awesome people to show up. You can make the show, you can think of what's the best experience for the customers, right? And then think the customers that I want, the customers that I'd like to bring to the show are going to want these kind of tables. So you can do whatever it takes to get those kind of tables. And that's going to be a show. That's going to be a specific show. Then you get the people that are on, let's say, a different end of a spectrum where they'll say, well, I need to make this work, so we're going to sell these tables, period. And then, you know, how adjacent it is to gun stuff is going to be up to people's interpretation. So, you know, you get a lot of the candles and a lot of the dog food things and the just weird stuff that would show up at any random show. And that can be a different kind of gun show for some people. And some people find that offensive. Oh my goodness, there's beef jerky at a gun show. Some people don't think of that as like, oh man, this is custom beef jerky. And I care about beef jerky so much that I just, instead of going to the store and buying garbage dog food equivalent, I can go buy stuff that somebody handcrafted. It might be made out of one animal or something. Nah, they go, oh, beef jerky? Blah, let's make fun of beef jerky. You know what I'm saying? So some people appreciate the beef jerky at vendors. Some people look forward to it. Some people stock up, keep those vendors in business, and probably some kind of rancher who's actually making good food. And some people would rather see their beef jerky next to the candy bars in some kind of plastic, individually wrapped. You know what I mean? So the vendors can make a big difference, and then the weather, right? So you can put shows in the heat of Arizona, and sometimes it's a break in the fast of gun shows. There are none, and you create one, so it's going to be a success either way. And then other times it can be, where people are like, oh, I hated that gun show because it was so hot or it was so cold or whatever. So yeah, there's so much variety. Going to gun shows is like going to the range. People that only go to the range as a function of feeling like they're filling out the recipe card are people that don't pay attention to the little details. They don't realize when they go to the range is when they have an actual experience to hang out with other gun owners. If you're going to meet another gun owner that lives near you, are you going to do that online randomly? Or are you going to do that at the range where people have to drive to? So some people go to gun shows and just don't think about that kind of stuff. And that can be a big thing. The promoter is definitely a big thing. And then I don't know how to say it, like the randomness of fate or chance. So you could have a crazy news cycle. You can have an situation with money, finances, gas prices go up, inflation's looming, everything's going great, and people got other things to spend money on. Vacations are so cheap, houses are so cheap, they're spending all their money there. So sometimes when you think everything would be so great, gun shows are going to be awesome, you go there and everybody's spending money on trucks and houses and vacations, and nobody's buying stuff or selling stuff at gun shows, and they're horrible, right? And then you can go to a gun show and all the economy's down, everybody's thinking, oh, woe is me, and I better get rid of grandpa's such and such quick for anything I can because I'm going to need to buy corn, storage corn or something. Well, you just figured out that grandpa's thing is on sale cheap that you've been wanting to complete your collection. So some of those gun shows can be amazing. So it's true. There's no way to know. And since gun shows are so unique and interesting, and there's no guarantees that a promoter is always going to put on a good show, and that the best show could have the least productive outcomes as far as like finding stuff for a collection or finding that thing you were looking for. And some of the slowest, smallest, tiniest shows can have some of the most interesting stuff. I've definitely experienced that. But I've also experienced some of the giant, huge show like Wanenmacher also having some of the most awesome stuff. So definitely like going to gamble or something, or like going to a concert. Let's say you go to a concert and you really like the band. You know the song, but something's wrong, right? The balloons popped funny or something. Everybody's got a mood. Somebody farted in the wrong place. And it's just a bad vibe. You know, that can happen at a show too, for different reasons, I guess. All right, DJC and pre-whatever, I worked a lot of shows with a friend before he opened his stores. There are opportunities to do much more than save money on a score. I still have seen more, and I've seen more rare and unique examples of firearms and related gear than in decades of going to pawn shops and gun shops. The relationships you can develop are worth far more. And getting so many generations together is freaking awesome. So you brought up a couple of good things there. Let's go backwards. The generations together is important because old people ain't going to the range, and they ain't going to the range like the young people, and the young people definitely not going to the range with the old people unless they have to. So it's a good point. They're probably not eating together, and maybe they hang out in the same gun shop at the same time, but that don't mean they're talking to each other. The gun show creates an environment where people can, one, First Amendment, assemble. 2, Second Amendment or First Amendment, right of the press, right? It's First Amendment, right of free speech. You get to exercise that First Amendment all over the place at a gun show. And often it's where you're passing information on to youngins who don't know nothing yet, and the youngins are getting information from old people who barely remember everything they've experienced, right? So, yeah, super interesting, super important, and might be one of the reasons why it seems like past generations are so in sync with earlier generations. It's because they didn't have distractions and they took time. They appreciated the intergenerational handoff of knowledge. They understood that was necessary. There were no internets to learn how to machine write or how to finish that thing or how to apply that part. You had to do it through practice or understanding from others. And that is a great part of it. The generational experiences or opportunities are insane. The relations you can develop are worth far more than getting. So the relationships, sure, yeah. Going to a gun show shows that you're the person who showed up. So let's say that you just want a good deal on something, or let's say you're more interested in learning about something that is hard to learn about. Let's say you want access to some place that you have to have a friend to get into. Let's say you're creating content and you're looking for something unique, right? Or whatever, something, maybe you're just looking for something new and, not something that's just on the table. You're looking for what's on the floor behind the table. That's the best stuff at a gun show, is not the stuff on the table, of course, right? Come on. So if you want access to any of that or to understand some of that, you start talking to other human beings. And once they understand you're, one, motivated enough to get up off your ass and go to that event, 2, went to the event that they spent money to attend, 3, standing there talking to them based on what's on their table. They put out bait. You walked up and seen the bait. That means you went through 4 levels of you're cool enough to talk to. And now you start talking to them. You can be a dick. Oh, I don't like your blah, blah, blah. You don't have a cool tablecloth made by Alan Anchor. I don't respect your stuff. You could also have a conversation with that person and unlock, a million different things. So yeah, great point about the relationships. Let's see, more stuff than you'd see in pawn shops and gun stores. Well, yeah, like the Wanenmacher is a crazy example. 4,000 tables. Typical gun show is going to be somewhere between 50 and 400 tables. A huge gun show is 400. So a typical gun show is about 200. A gym or a cafeteria building or like a regular conference room at a hotel, you're talking 200 or fewer tables. Somewhere around 50 to 200 is a medium to large show these days. Over 200, it'd be a big show. And over 1,000 tables, there's very few of those shows anymore. But you're talking 1,000 tables. So those are going to be arranged in aisles and islands. So aisles and rows and aisles, let's say. So somebody might buy a table. They might buy 2 tables. Some people, stores, distributors, people that do FFL work out of their homes and stuff, they might buy however many tables are in an island. So if you got rows and columns of walkways, right, and all these tables are arranged essentially in little donuts all around, and that creates the walkways. Some gun shops or large distributors or groups of friends, whatever, a club, an organization might rent that whole island. So if the island is 8 tables at $100 a piece, $800 right there. So if you see somebody that has an entire island, they're seriously invested in that gun show and being there. So you're talking a gun shop might have 1,000 guns, might have 400 guns, it might have 4,000 guns. How many can they bring and put on a table? 20 on a table, 100 on a table, something like that. You want to be able to have a reasonable number that you can keep track of, and there's boxes for each of those. So it's you've got to have either another place nearby to store all that kind of material, or have a really good inventory system of boxes underneath the table. But a show with 200 tables, is that like having 200 gun shops? Not really. It's like having 100 gun shops. Maybe there's probably not that many gun shops in any place, though. There's probably like having the opportunity for every gun shop in the area, every FFL, and then every person who might sell something at a swap meet or a garage sale, everybody who might just want to sell something to somebody else they know is another gun owner, rather than just somebody in a swap meet or a classified ad. Because you put something in a classified ad, how do you know it's a gun owner picking that up? It might be, who knows what, buying that gun. You go to a gun show, that's somebody who's probably a gun owner. I mean, it's possible that somebody who's not a gun owner is going to go to all the trouble of finding and go into a gun show, but most people are gun owners by the time they get into a gun show. So as far as finding more gear than the pawn shops, your odds are just in your favor. But here's the other thing. You go into a pawn shop and you look at a revolver. What's the odds of that pawn shop employee knowing anything about that revolver? Right? Tell me, you don't know. 0? 10% or something, if you're lucky. If it's a super good pawn shop with a reputation for this item, maybe it's in their awareness. But you go to a gun show and you're buying something on a table with 800 revolvers from Colt, that guy probably knows about Colt revolvers. You go over to another table and there's, 13 different M1 Garands. Well, she probably knows about M1 Garands. So you can not just find the interesting stuff, but find the people who know and care about that interesting stuff and who are also collectors of that interesting stuff. Going back to the relationships and the handing down stuff to generations. So great points in that one. Working at gun shows isn't a great idea. You get paid to go hang out at a gun show and you go in for free. And they give you breaks and they want you to leave every once in a while because everybody gets sick of each other sitting next to each other behind a table. So it's like, yeah, go walk around. I don't care. Leave. Good. Great idea. And then you get to go walk around a gun show for free. And you got money. And when you're a vendor, guess what? Everybody who knows vendors knows. Because where are we talking? 200 or less tables? How hard is it to look around and see who the vendors are? Unless you're not paying attention, it's super easy to figure out who the other vendors are. So when a vendor walks in front of you, you go, hey, you're also here for real. Like, you're also in the game, right? Like, what do you want? You can have it at a deal, right? What do you need? I got stuff behind the table. You know what I'm saying? So being a vendor at a gun show, walking around, come on, man. That's one of the best situations you can be in. Tell me about it. I started going to Wanenmacher as helping people at tables. It's amazing. It is the best times. Because you're literally got all the time in the world. And you have a table where you can grab heavy stuff, big stuff, whatever, drag it over to your table and put it behind there. Nobody's going to care. So now you've got a place to put your stuff. You don't have to drag it out to the car even. It's the best of all worlds is to work a table at a gun shop or at a gun show. Let's see. There are opportunities to do much more than save on a score. Well, that's the other thing is you're going to save so much money. So much money. You're going to be able to acquire things that aren't possible, and you're going to get them at a better price than ever because there's no shipping. There's nothing weird going on. if let's say you're collecting bottle caps and you find somebody selling bottle caps, are they going to want to rape the next collector of bottle caps, or are they going to appreciate that you care about the thing they care about and probably give you it at a discount and maybe even give it to you because they'd rather know that a collector has this super rare thing that's unobtainable rather than it going to stupid eBay and going into some vault in China or something as an artifact of the the capitalists. So yeah, so much good stuff in DJ's post there. And he says he still refuses to go to Wanenmacher for some reason. You make it sound pretty fun. A gun show can be the most interesting thing in the gun community, and it can be the most fun you can have in the industry, and it can also be mocked and ridiculed and worthless and lame. So, you know what I mean? Like, it all depends on how you want to see it. The worst gun shows are the best opportunities, period. No, that just makes sense. Everything's like that. Everything that gets dismissed by everyone else is a massive opportunity for somebody who's actually able to see the potential. But yeah, some gun shows can be pretty lame. Something that are full of cotton candy and remote controlled cars and jewelry and perfume, and then some overpriced truck stop garbage or stuff like that. And they just call it a gun show. Yeah, that could be frustrating. But on the other hand, that can be something that you go and you find the 2 or 3 people that have a decent table and you start to go, hey, thanks for being here. Right on. And then and then time goes on. Guess what? Nothing stays the same. So time goes on and all of a sudden it's a rockin' gun show. And those 2 or 3 people that own the show because they've been there for the longest time have the largest tables, are the most successful. Most people bring their stuff to them to resell. And now those people know you've been going to the gun show just as long as them. Who's getting the best prices? Who's getting the stuff behind the table? Yeah, you can own gun shows or you can attend gun shows. It's just like the internet. You can observe, you can be an attendee, you can be in the audience, or you can realize that this is the internet in 2022. It's like the Matrix. Just go out on the field and be part of it. You are the internet. You are part of the gun show. So fun, yeah. Potential for finding people and hanging out and having a good time. I mean, I've been doing this thing called the Daily Gun Show for 1,400 episodes. I don't care about Shan and her opinion of gun shows. I do it so that gun owners understand that gun shows are our blood. It might be some sort of like, I don't know, one of those other things, the lymph system or something that I don't know about, but it's one of those things that circulates amongst the industry community and individuals that makes us what we are. We can ignore it all we want, but it's there and it's doing its thing. It's necessary and it's got such potential. So yeah, they can be super fun. We haven't even talked about stuff like food and the parking lots and the rest of the weekend, because whenever you bring a bunch of enthusiasts together, like you bring a bunch of people, I don't know what it's like for your experience going to concerts, but if you bring a bunch of people who like a band together for a weekend at the same town, those hotels are usually pretty lit, as the kids would say, right? So you're bringing a bunch of gun owners together to hang out for a number of hours, and then they're going to cut loose after. So what are the bars and restaurants and places to hang out like? I mean, if you're a gun shop and there's a gun show that happens in town, why aren't you opening that evening and having barbecues and get-togethers, for crying out loud? There are food trucks that are in our industry that are gun owners who would show up at your gun shop. You could have an after-hours event after every gun shop, and you could change, or after every gun show, and you could change the whole gun show. You could change a culture. So yeah, they can be pretty fun. They could be pretty fun, right? They have been pretty fun. They are fun, and they could be insane. Look at the things like the Red October that's about to, wait, did it already happen? And then Clash Bash, some of the other like crazy events that have been happening. Rod of Iron out on the East Coast, where you bring in a range. Essentially, you do this whole thing out of range. So Fatty with Firearms saying the Wanenmacher has a huge variety of stuff: modern, polymer, wonder guns, cartridge collectors, custom Damascus knives, custom rare wood and material for grips, old guns, thousands of magazines and shirts and stuff. So I'm glad you put shirts last, because it's actually kind of a lame gun show if you just want to get gun show stuff, because it is a lot of guns. It's a lot. They encourage guns. People show up for guns. There's a lot of collectors, and people that supply collectors, I guess is the way to say it. People that vacuum the world for the stuff that collectors want, and they use Wanenmacher as their way to funnel it to the collectors. Just a lot of guns. So it's definitely a good gun show. And the shirts and stuff, I mean, I can think of, like, honestly, if you had to think about getting a shirt at a gun show, there's no way I'd go to Wanenmacher for it. There's only that one shirt guy way over on the west side. That's it. It's a permanent guy, and he's only been permanent for like 3 years that I know of, so, or maybe 5 by now. But yeah, I'm trying to think. There's not any consistent shirt people on the downstairs at all. They're too new, and the upstairs only has that one guy. Unless I'm crazy, I might be forgetting something in the wings. But yeah, I mean, I don't want to make it seem like there's a lot of shirts and stuff there. There's really not. There's Smeggy joining. It's early for Smeggy. It's super early or late for Smeggy. It's hard to say. Folks even rent tables to show off their amazing collections of a specific thing. So that's a good point from Fatty also. So gun shows are shows. So yeah, they're swap meets, I guess. But they, here in Arizona at least, there's Arizona Cartridge Collect, or the Arizona, what are they called? The Arizona, is it Peacemaker? Yeah, it was the Peacemaker gun show. So there was my experience with gun shows was enhanced a lot when I became the guy for this gun show promoter that was made up of the people who attend the gun shows. So it was a nonprofit formed here in Tucson to create gun shows, and that's all they did. Unfortunately, the treasurer is a horrible lady, criminal, and she stole all the money. She stole like $60,000 from the organization, and it went under. Horrible lady. So, but the group existed to create collector shows. It was the Arizona Arms Collectors. That's what it was, Arizona Arms Collectors Association. And then once it went under, Bob created Peacemakers to kind of carry on the concept at some of the locations. He was able to do that for a couple of years. But anyway, the Arizona Arms, when it was running, it would do in its prime, I think it was 2 or 3 collector shows. Literally an entire gun show worth of people would show up and everything. Nothing for sale. It was all just people having tables set up with their collections. And you'd walk around and talk about their different guns and stuff, and look at the way they present it, or look at the way they set it up, because you can take your collection of stuff and set it up this weekend. And then you can think about it and learn more and figure something out and have time to fret around with it. And then you set it up 2 months from now or 2 years from now, it's going to be a different setup, right? Same stuff. You just know more and you're able to set it up differently. Maybe you got a mannequin. You could put up some clothing on a mannequin instead of laying it on a table. You know, whatever. You figure out a way to display it or hang everything. Take a piece of plywood and put some hooks in it. And now you can show off your guns better. There's an entire show of just that. And then they encouraged, and moth just flew from over on the wall right into my eyeball. They would encourage those kind of tables at any show, and people would set up, and I'd learned so much about guns from a collector who would be showing off their stuff at a gun show. So you're looking around, you're waiting, somebody's standing at a table bothering them about something, and you're waiting for something else. That's what happened to me all the time. So I'm like, all right, I'm going to either go over there and be a pest, and now I'm not going to probably get the thing I want or learn the thing I want to learn. So instead, I'll just walk away, because they're going to be here all day, and I'm going to be here all day. So I'll just walk away until this person who's farting around gets out of their hair. Right? So what am I going to do while I'm waiting around? Well, I'm going to go look at somebody's collection, and maybe they're explaining it to some kid, or they're explaining it to some old person. Well, I can sit there and listen and learn just as much as anybody, right? So gun shows are awesome for that kind of stuff. So yeah, the people that are showing off their collections are a big part of gun shows. Betty saying I've made great contacts with folks that I have bought from at Wanenmacher. Occasionally texted 2 of my gun show friends that get stuff into their shops they think I might like. Yeah, see, so again, if you're a gun shop owner and you're thinking, why would I want to go to a gun show? Why? Just because my FFL works at the gun show and it doesn't work anywhere else except my brick and mortar location. So I can't just go to a swap meet. I can't just set up on the street somewhere. I can't just go door to door selling guns. I have to sell them in my brick and mortar, because of the way the world works, or I have to go to Stupid Gun Show and do it. So why would I want to go to Stupid Gun Show? All right, I'm going to set up all my stuff at a gun show. Actively marketing. It's just like a billboard. I'm going to put up a bunch of money so that a bunch of people know my shop exists. What's the point of that? I'm going to tell a bunch of people who don't even own guns about my gun shop and tell them the phone number or some logo that they remember. Why would I want to do that? Oh, because then there's a thing called time. And over time, people change and things come up. And now all of a sudden they need to know about a gun shop. And they think, I don't know nothing about gun shops because I'm not a gun owner. But wait a minute, isn't there a billboard on the highway that I keep seeing that says something about a gun shop? Isn't there a gun shop I can see from the highway that's got their phone number written on the roof instead of wasting time not putting anything on the roof? Oh yeah, right? Like now they know about you. So that's what advertising is, right? So go into a gun show. Oh, I didn't sell any guns this weekend, blah, blah, blah. Then they go home and they go back to their gun shop the next day. And then it's like, ring, ring, ring. I saw you at the gun show. Do you still have the blah, blah, blah? Hey, I was at the gun show and I seen you had the blah, 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 but I didn't want to stop and say, hey, because you were talking to some guy. Or like, ring, 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 blah, 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 the gun show, right? So gun shows are a big part of doing business and understanding the community of people around. Because how many people are going to get off their ass and walk into your gun shop, especially if your gun shop's in some weird place that's far away from them, next to some place that they don't like, or that's someplace they've never been before. It's around the corner from a thing, or it's backwards on around the thing. It's really hard to find because it's the cheapest place you could find to have your gun shop. Or maybe that's the most secure place, or it's the coolest place to have your gun shop, and that's your business. Well, they go to the gun show. So why wouldn't you want to go to the gun show? How hard is it to send a couple of people from your shop to every single gun show? It's probably too hard, probably too much. You don't want all those customers. And then the idea of then calling a customer who you met at a gun show and letting them know that you got the blah, blah, blah. So here you go to a gun show and you spent $100 for the table, and then you spent money for that employee to sit with you, and you brought a bunch of product. Maybe something gets damaged or ruined or something. So now that product is like just adding the cost to the show. Maybe you forgot to bring a thing of that and whatever, this and that. Now you had to send somebody to the store and buy it at full price. Now that's adding to the price of the show. And then you just sit there being a mump. Blah, blah, blah. The show cost me so much money and blah, blah, blah. And the beef jerky is next to me and blah, blah, blah. I mean, one time I had to sit behind people selling some kind of smelly goop that they would wipe on people's arthritis. I have never learned so much about salespeople, I mean, at least in that way, than listening to people wipe stuff on old people's hands and the way that they interacted with people and the way that they were able to pivot on a dime and have a conversation with one person versus another person. So there's a lot of stuff to glean when you're at a show. Anyhow, so you are sitting there like a mope because the show costs so much and you don't like gun shows and you shouldn't have, you made a bad decision being there. Nobody's buying nothing from you. They just keep coming around and poking. They keep asking for stuff you didn't bring to the show. They keep asking for stuff you don't got. Are you getting their phone numbers? Are you giving them your card with incentive to call you? Like maybe 25% off? Sorry, we didn't have what you're looking for, but here's 25% off the next thing you buy in my store. What's the odds they're going to come in and buy the one thing that has a 10% markup? What's the odds that they're going to come in and buy a thing that has a 40% markup? Come on, man. Why aren't you going to gun shows? So great point that you can make contact with gun shops, and then the gun shops that are paying attention contact you because they went to a gun shop to learn about who their customer base is, and they were actively listening to what their customers were interested in. Let's say that you went to a gun shop and you took a little spiral-bound notebook and you wrote down everything that people wanted. Did you just get a bunch of real feedback from customers or potential customers on the exact models that they're looking for? Almost seems like you could take massive advantage of a gun show when most of your competitors are sitting at home on a Saturday spending money. So are there no cool Wanenmacher patches? Well, first, there's not too many patches at Wanenmacher. Have I brought patches? I guess I did bring patches a couple of times, and I've had like the courtesy purchase or people who, we were doing with gun channels or something and bought one because it was an opportunity to buy it without shipping or something or straight from us. But there's not really patches. People that go to Wanenmacher aren't interested in anything like that. If anything, they'd be interested in like an old-fashioned Colt patch or something because some old-fashioned Colt collector put them next to their guns and photographs. They wouldn't want it for like a patch panel. There's some patches from like military things, but I don't remember seeing very many, if any. Like, I guess I have seen, because I do look for patches, and I have seen some people. No, there's one guy, now that I'm thinking about it. There's a guy who brings like boxes and boxes and boxes of, I don't know what to call them, like, what do you call those things? Those things like you'd put CDs in a 3-ring binder, like these little plastic pocket pages that are page pockets, whatever you want to call them, that hold a bunch of different patches. And there might be somebody here and there that has some military patches, or maybe like some kind of shooting team patches or something like that. But very rarely are there morale patches. Sometimes up top over by the very west end where the t-shirts are, there's a patch place or two. But they figure out, they bring all their patches, they set up. I don't know what a table costs at Wanenmacher. Let's say it costs $100. You set up a table with that costs you $100, and you put patches on it. And if you're lucky, you're making $1 or $2 per patch, because most people are selling them like a commodity. I mean, how many patches? You got to sell 100 patches. You have to sell 200 patches. You have to sell 100 patches if you're getting $1 a piece. So what's the odds you're going to sell 100 patches? I don't sell 100 patches in a year, so I don't think too many people sell 100 patches on a shelf. Maybe they do. I don't know. But that's why I think I think you need to see more value on a table at Wanenmacher. People aren't going to Wanenmacher to buy patches is the problem. So it's not like patches don't have value. It's just that people at Wanenmacher aren't interested in them. Fatty saying, I love it when Rock Island has their booth downstairs and they're cool with you holding their guns. Some of the rarest ones on earth, and you can touch them. Can't buy them. Well, you can't buy them there. You can bid on them later. That's the whole point. But you can hold them. Yeah, I've worked with Rock Island now a couple of times over the years and toured their facility, and we have a pretty decent relationship as far as, I haven't asked them for a lot, but whenever I ask them for something, they are very obliging. They're very nice. And like I said, I've worked with them a couple of times at Wanenmacher, actually. So they're a very, very cool piece of our industry for sure. And they're pretty much a permanent part of the Wanenmacher. Now, here's the thing. There's 3 or 4 auction places that set up at Wanenmacher. Rock Island is the largest, the most elaborate. They'll have an entire island, and they'll have glass cases for all their super expensive stuff. They know what they're doing, and they bring out some super expensive stuff to Wanenmacher. And they don't bring their stuff, everything, to every show. They'll bring a couple of pieces sometimes on a tour around the country to get everybody aware of their stuff and to show the quality of their items. Or the rarity, I guess. But yeah, very cool. And like you say, they're cool people. Plus, nobody will talk about this kind of stuff. They got some of the best swag, usually calendars or magnets or pens and stuff, like some really cool swag, considering a lot of places don't even have swag anymore. Rock Island does a pretty good job of giving you something that's useful and interesting. DJ's heading out. Thanks for all the links. And then, am I going to Wanenmacher? I doubt it. It costs too much money. DJ's saying that 8-foot tables are $200, 6-foot are 175. I'm guessing you got that off the Wanenmacher site, so now we know they're $200. So I was thinking, every time I said 100, I mean, it's been years since tables cost only 100. Usually tables are like 150 places, 125. I just didn't feel like saying 125. But thanks for that. All right, so now going over to the poll again, 9-hour poll. So I don't know if that's unprecedented or not, but for the last hour, we have been getting some people voting. Most people are saying no, but they have not gone, but they want to go someday. That's 67%. 22% are saying they love the show and they've been many times. And 6% are saying going for their first time. So if you're going for your first time and you're voting like that, feel free to say hey and what you're looking for. And then 6% of people work for Biden or hang out with Biden all the time. So let's talk about Tulsa. We've been talking about gun shows kind of in general. Now let's talk about Tulsa and the whole reason for going to this show. It's the largest show, probably in the world. There might be larger things, but those are industry events that are invite only, or you got to pay a bunch of money to get into them or something, or they're held in other countries or something. So this is in Tulsa, Oklahoma. And in Tulsa, they built a building in their fairgrounds not so much a convention center, it's an exposition hall. So they would rent it out, or they built it for, I think I've been told they built it for oil rigs, so they can set up an oil rig inside the building for whatever, like an industry show or some, for whatever they need to do that stuff for, and multiples of them. So if you go to an industry event, the stuff that would normally be outside because it's so large can be inside in this building. So it's a very large building. It's 11 acres long. We'll be taking a look at some pictures of it here. Or I guess I don't know how many acres long it is, but it's 11 acres under one roof. There's no poles. So it's completely suspended, and it's got this outdoor suspension system that makes it look like a weird sea creature or something. But it's 6 miles of tables. I've walked it before, and I thought it was more like 11 miles if you walk it, but maybe that depends on the pattern or walking back and forth or something. And then it says general interest exhibits, antique and modern firearms, knives, swords, accessories, collections, celebrity guests. Yeah, I guess. There's this giant building. We'll be taking a look at the building. And I guess just more history of it is it started in 1955. There's a paragraph somewhere that we'll read here in a second that talks about the history of it. This is a picture of it from a table mid-show one year, kind of randomly. This was a pretty fun year. This guy who's over here reaching over his table, that guy would scoot around on a cooler with a bicycle motor in it, like a motorcycle engine in it. Have you ever seen those? Like, they make a moped out of a cooler, essentially. So it's still a cooler, kind of. It holds like a 6-pack, but it also has a motor in it, and you sit on it, and it's kind of like a weird skateboard cooler mini bike hybrid. He's scooting around on one of those all weekend. Anyway, this was an interesting show, and that guy's from the Texas Gun Collectors. My friend Martin is from them, I think. Anyway, so this was downstairs on the east end of the building. There's probably another 3 or 4 aisles. So there's 3 or 4 aisles behind me. This is probably 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 aisles in front of us. Then there's this halfway part of the building, and the other half of the building is up about 12 feet in the air, and then it goes across. And I guess that's because of the curvature of the earth. They weren't able to make a straight building lay on the earth flat. They had to put this curvature line in here. So there'll be ramps on the edges of the building, and in the center of the building, you just have this split level, I guess. So and they imagine this is where they can put their oil rigs or whatever. And over here, it's a little bit shorter, 12 foot shorter, I guess. Anyhow, so there's this bottom section and there's this top section. The strip there where the top and bottom kind of meet is typically just tables. That's why I don't really see too much stuff right there. That's just a bunch of tables so people can sit and rest their feet, eat, or something like that. I imagine it's just a buffer so nobody accidentally falls over the edge. So it's also a great place to take pictures of the whole thing. Then that upper looks exactly like the lower, just different people in different booths and stuff. But the upper is the tenure, the people that have been going longer. So the way that it works is if you rent a table from them, next time they have a show, you can rent that same table. So people that have been doing it for a while have kind of shifted to these top tables. And some of these tables up here would be the ones that had been attending the show for the longest time, have the most seniority, have the most claim on these upper tables. I don't know if they're better or not. That's where they have them and that's where they are. And there's entrances on both sides at top and bottom, I think. So I don't think there's an advantage to having it by the entrance. You're kind of closer to the office, but I don't know if there's any advantage really. The restaurants are up and are on both levels. So I think there's 3 sets of restaurants. So there's plenty of, and then there's same with bathrooms. Like then there's bathrooms on 3 corners of this thing, or even more, and maybe some in the middle too. So anyway, there is some kind of rhyme or reason to the layout. And that's why I say, if you're looking for something in particular, there are a couple of islands of people who are kind of always there. And if you're looking for something that matches up with those people, we can sometimes direct you to those. Otherwise, one of the neatest things about Wanenmachers is there's nothing that there's no floor plan you can remember. Like I say, there's maybe 20 people on this first level that in the lower level that are always in the same place. and there might be 50 people in the top level that are always in the same place, at least the stuff I pay attention to. Everything else is kind of random. So there's always something new to see. You can always be walking past something, and it's not like, oh, I'm walking through the Civil War stuff, or I'm walking through the knives. Like, there's always something different next to the table with something different. Very interesting, very fun. And when you have a show like that, it means that no one is in a routine. No one just knows where everything is. The only routine is that the people who've been there a long time knows it's chaotic, and that they're in a flow. They're able to keep up with that nature of it. The people that have been there a long time can handle that. Some people definitely cannot handle it. And you can imagine, if you don't like big giant rooms full of tons of people, I don't remember how many tens of thousands of people in this room, and walking through the traffic and the parking lot to get to this building, you know what I'm saying? A lot of people can't deal with that. Now there's Uber, so I can't even imagine. I've always either been press or working for the show. I've never just attended the show like a regular attendee, so I don't know what it's like to park somewhere, walk in, spend a lot of time walking to the building, because I always get there super early, so I don't have to walk very far at all, and then wait in line, and then pay for a ticket, and then have to walk home after. So I would think, even if I was just visiting Tulsa, I would leave my car wherever, and I would Uber. But that's just, like I say, I do the show by helping work the show. But if I was attending the show, I think I'd Uber. They could drop you right off at the entrance, pick you right up at the entrance, take you right back to the restaurant or wherever it is you're going. But let me know, what do we think there? So let's see. Then we've got Fatty's asking if you're going to go to Wanenmacher, wear comfortable walking shoes. I think people are getting the impression from this picture that you're going to get some walking. They say in the thing that there's 6 miles of walking, or 6 miles of tables, but I think that equates to more like 11 miles of walking if you went to the whole thing. It's only open Saturday and Sunday, so you don't have a heck of a lot of time to try to experience it all. So I'm going to read the description, probably from their website. I can't remember. Since 1955, the Indian Territory Gun Collectors Association has sponsored 2 shows, typically in April and October, every year. In 1968, Joe Wanenmacher was elected secretary-treasurer of the club. One of his responsibilities of treasurer was to produce the show. It was a tiny 100-table show when he took over, but under his leadership, it grew to be the biggest and best gun show in the world. The Indian Territory Gun Collectors Association no longer sponsors the show, but we're excited to be sponsored by the Tulsa Arms Collectors Association. And the Tulsa Arms Collectors Association is a group you can join. I forget what it was, like $50 a year or something. Less than that. And mostly it gives you access and early access to the show and access to getting a table at the show. I think it was maybe priority or something. I was a member for a bit. So working the show, you get to go in there before it's open. Being a member of the club lets you have the opportunity, I guess, to come in and work so you can help set up the show. And one year I came in and helped set up, and these are some of the pictures. I think these are from then. I don't even remember where these pictures are from. But when you come in there and it's empty, it gives you an idea of how big the building is. I'll just open these all up so we can go through them. And then as the vendors start to show up, that's when you eventually start to see it transform, or start to turn into what it is. So this is what it looks like again when the tables are just being set up, way before even the vendors even think about getting in there. Here's what it's like standing on that upper level, looking down at pretty much the entire lower level. So if I can zoom this thing out and use my whole wide monitor here, like now I can zoom back and forth and everything. So the show has these wings. Here's one of this is looking, wait a minute. That's interesting. I never thought about, wait. I guess there's a restaurant down there. Oh yeah, there is. There's bathrooms and stuff. So I didn't even think about that. So there's bathrooms in all 4 corners. Anyway, so there's these wings, and you can see this wing over here to the right. This is the main show room, the main show floor. And then you can see these kind of edge of the building, the big room there. And then there's another wing over there in the other restaurant. So you can see the restaurant, and then it's got this much room beyond the restaurant. Because of this weird angle, it was throwing me off. But you got equivalent, something like that over here. And then on this side of it, you've got another. This is about a normal gun show's worth of tables, really. A small gun show's worth of tables, just in the wings. Like, I don't consider these the building. This is the main building. These are like, because these aren't always really full. Depending on how full the show is, these can be a little sparse. And this will be where museums set up and things like that. So that's a picture of it from the upstairs. There's a blurrier picture of looking at it from the upstairs looking down. This is a picture of the door where it says you can't bring guns inside, which I always think is funny when they put a gun show inside of one of these kind of rooms. This is what it looks like as people are starting to set up. This is downstairs one year. And you can see when there's no people there, it's possible to drive vehicles in. They'll regulate that, not one vehicle at a time, but, they'll manage so that it's not a traffic jam in here. And most people, you wonder, how do they get all this stuff in here? Well, they just drag their vehicle right to the table, drop it all off. The smart ones roll it out of a vehicle like this with rolling shelving units and stuff. And then it's all there. Then they leave and park and come back and set it all up. Individuals will typically do multiple trips from their vehicle or something like that. It's that's a whole nother level of the production and infrastructure and facilitation of this thing, to think about the setup of the tables and then the organization and the follow through of how everybody sets up for the show. So they set up starting Thursday, Friday, and then the show happens Saturday and Sunday. And often people are booking out of there before Sunday's even over. Remember, they've been there since Thursday. So they're booking out of there since, before the show's even over. So on Sunday, when it's over, it's almost empty again by Sunday night. Not quite, because there's some big stuff that takes some time. But most of the tables look like this again by Sunday night. Not quite as orderly. There's the chairs aren't sitting on top of the tables or nothing. That's how you can tell it's the beginning of the show and not the end of the show. You can also see the sun setting in the west through the windows on that side of the building, which you don't even really get to see during the show. You don't even realize that there's windows over there. This is upstairs, and again, looking at some of the kind of staging of some of the tables. These are probably gun shops that came in and know what they're doing and got it all set up and then kind of covered for the evening. Here's a picture from the outside, and you can see the weird upright thingies that hold the roof up. So there's no center pillars. It makes the building look pretty interesting from the outside. And they're smart, and they put up a couple of trucks around, or they park a couple of trucks around that talk about the show, what's going on at the event. There's a big dude holding onto an oil rig out front. I forget what they call him, the dude or something. And that's why we use that. He's in front of the convention center. A lot of people use that to indicate Wanenmacher. And then here's a picture with everybody standing around again. Another picture from inside that year. This was a pretty fun year. Like I say, the Texas guys were pretty fun to listen to. They just don't give a shit. They got a lot of stuff on the table. They probably paid $1 for everything, and everything costs $1,000. So they're making money on everything they sell, and they don't care if they sell it or not. And they just fart around having a good time, listening and talking to people. I think a lot of these people go there to hang out with like 7 people, and all these other people are inconsequential. And some of them enjoy it. Some of them don't even pay attention, and others have a lot of fun with it. These guys were having a lot of fun with it. The people to the right of us had some of the most expensive guns I'd ever been able to fiddle with, and they were super cool, and they let me fiddle with everything. I got a bunch of videos. So I've got videos with some of the most expensive guns I've ever been able to just fiddle with were from hanging out with those people to the right of us. They were collector resellers who basically just attended shows, had a massive network of people, or have a massive network. I don't know if they're still around. They were old guys, but had a massive network of people that would buy and sell stuff and that would be interested in stuff. So they knew if they got a revolver, they already had 4 people that wanted that revolver. And they already pretty much knew what they were going to be able to get for that revolver. And that was enough for them to travel shows and like assist people with finding their collections, essentially. Super interesting dudes. And like I say, some of the most expensive little guns and fiddling around stuff that I've played with, and they could care less if I was playing with it, making videos and stuff. Super neat. It's interesting. You think of something like maybe a $20,000 gun or a $15,000 gun as being something that somebody's going to appreciate, somebody's going to really cherish. And then you meet people that have dozens of $20,000 guns and they're just commodities to them. They could care less about the thing other than they know that it costs money and they appreciate that. They could care less about the thing or its history or how it works or anything. It's just that's a thing that costs $20,000. I bought it for 10 and I'm going to sell it for 25. You know, that's all they care about. Super interesting. The community is big and vast. So I think I've talked about it long enough. We've talked about it for about an hour. If there's any other questions, I'll be happy to answer them. This is sort of odd time to be doing the show, but like say some real life stuff happened. Couldn't do the show when we wanted in the normal time, midnight Eastern, doing it in the middle of the night. So giving people who don't normally get to see the show, I guess we're not doing it in the middle of the night. We're doing it in the middle of the morning for some people who don't get to normally see the show, getting the chance to see it live or be part of it live. Not really seeing nothing. Let's see. So then Patty saying, I always wear the same shirt at Wanenmacher's, the bright orange shirt from the movie Happy Gilmore that says guns don't kill people. That way, a bright orange shirt. That way I'm wearing a bright orange shirt. It's funny, I've gotten laughs from sellers when I read my shirt. It may not have helped make deals, or may not have helped make deals. That's a good point. I definitely know what it's like to offend people right off the bat, but guess what? You can't know what people are going to be offended by, so just do. How many people usually attend the show? Where do they all park? So Roy's asking a good question. It's the convention, it's the state park, right? No, state fairgrounds. It's the state fairgrounds for Tulsa. I think it's the state fairgrounds. So it's as big as the state fairgrounds would be. I think it's bigger than a county fairgrounds. Anyhow, there's a ice skating thing in the parking lot. There is the place for the fairgrounds where they do like their cow inspections and they look at goats and that kind of stuff. So there's like tons of stables north of it in the parking lot. There are racetracks for cars and for horses at this place. And I think there's another giant building that I don't know what it is. So there's giant facilities, and each of these have parking lots. So it must be a mile by a mile or something, or a mile by a half mile of parking lots. So where do people park? Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I go there working for the show or covering the show. Either way, I get there at 6 a.m, 3 hours before the show opens, and probably, before most people get there. I'm not the first one there. So then I usually get parked pretty close, and then I take a nap. Like I'll get there early and go to sleep, and then wake up when everybody's there. That's how you get a good parking place. But if you can't do that, or you ain't able to do that, then I've parked like a mile away. Like I have parked all the way on the north side of the stupid parking lot, on the other side of the stupid stables. So that's why I know there's stables and stuff, because I've had to walk through them like 4 times because I had to park on the other side from them. So yeah, if you get to the show past an hour before opening, then you're walking a long way. It's just the nature of it. That's why I was saying with the Uber, I think I wouldn't even bother. I'd stay at my hotel or wherever and then get an Uber. There's no way I would park. I guess the idea would be if you got something so heavy, if you bought something so heavy or so big that an Uber couldn't take it, I would just make arrangements to go get an Uber back to my place, get my car and drive back, and then get it in my car. Never have to park. But I'm not a big fan of parking and then walking 2 miles to go walk 11 miles. I'd rather get let off right at the door and walk 11 miles and then get picked right up at the door again. But I'm lazy. That's the end of that one. Huge parking lot encircling the venue. Yep. I mean, one time we parked so far away, we were on the car racetrack, I think. So you can park pretty far away. I'm just so used to living in a crowded city with giant parking structures. Yeah, there's nothing levels of this parking. It's just sprawl. So it's definitely an issue. And if you're carrying ammo or a heavy anything, which, is possible for sure at a gun show, yeah, that can be super annoying. The good news is if you can go with other people, that's the way to do it. And then even if you did, 3 of you bought ammo, the 4th person can go run, get the car, and then bring it way closer to you, right? That is possible, but it's so massive. How many people attend? I guess I don't know off the top of my head, but I think it's something like tens of thousands of people. Is it 40,000? So I have no idea how many are standing in that building at one time. I'm sure it's within fire code or whatever, but just tons. So there's always something going around or happening outside. There's never just room or available area, right? There's always something, somebody standing somewhere, always. But I can't. It's the same as a concert or a giant flea market or something, I guess. Is there flea markets this big? Actually, I don't know. It might be the biggest thing I've ever been in that's a market, now that I'm thinking about it. Yeah, I think it is. I can't imagine anything bigger than that as a market of any kind. There might be a bigger swap meet somewhere, or like a bigger Comic Con or something. A big giant computer thing would be interesting. Like if there was a show that just had computers and electronics that were this big, and like old stuff and collectible stuff, that'd actually be pretty cool. All right, well, that's, I think we're going to wrap it up. We've been about an hour. I did want to drop the show, even though we weren't able to post the show at the normal time. 1,400 episodes in, every once in a while, we're going to shift by a couple hours. All right, well, thanks again. Thanks to see, good to see Fatty being able to join us, and Roy jumping in, and the rest. Thanks, everybody, for joining, and whoever might be listening in the future. If you're able to get to Tulsa, awesome. There's lots of interesting things to do. It's tons of fascinating people. If you're going to be going and, well, like I say, if you're going, let us know. And then we'll have more shows, I'm sure, as it gets closer. And then hopefully some shows chatting with people to see how it was after. All right, so with that, we'll take a look at the poll. Are you going to Wanenmacher? Ended up with 68% not going, but wanting to go, 21% going because they've gone many times, and then 5% going for the first time, but we didn't get any of those people here tonight chiming in, telling us what they might be interested in or that kind of thing. So feel free to leave that kind of information in the comments if you're listening to this in the future or on the podcast or something like that. We go live every weeknight, typically at midnight Eastern, and we talk about guns for an hour. Tomorrow will be our Friday look back at the week. This was the Daily Gun Show.
GearWebsites.com is your source for firearms-based playing cards and books. We also have mugs, shirts, and posters with designs that we've made live. Of course, we have patches. Every Friday is Free Patch Friday. We appreciate your support. Thank you for shopping at GearWebsites.com. So let us know what you think. We'll be watching the comments wherever you find the video, over on Gunstreamer.com or on GunTube.org. Thank you for supporting our projects. If you'd like to buy us a cup of coffee, check out our Patreon channel.
The guys and gals of GunWebsites.com encourages you to take a CCW class every year, practice at least once a month, and carry every day. Thank you for watching GunWebsites.com.